Hey everybody, Miss Brown here. I just wanted to take a second to make a video about prompting. Prompting is something that we use a lot, whether we realize it or not, to get our students or other people in our lives to do things that we want. So an example of that is when we're at school or when we're working on academics. If you ask someone a direct question, it may say, what is the answer to number 3? We go through different levels of prompting trying to get a student to answer that question. Or, what do you want for lunch? If you don't get that immediate response, you may repeat the question, you may show them some options of what you want for lunch. But one of the things that we like to avoid doing at school is over prompting. So it's super important to give our students who it may take a little while to communicate or they're communicating in a different way. It's important to give them that time to be able to express themselves independently before we're asking them or pushing responses on them. So one of the things that we use at school is called a prompt hierarchy. And this hierarchy basically just organizes and outlines kind of the prompts to give when asking a student an academic question, or it may be something helpful that you can remind other family members in your house to give your student a little bit more independence. Again, I always say in these videos about communication that you know how to communicate with your students at home. You've been doing it for 15 to 20 years. So you're definitely the experts on that, but I hope that this video will give you a little bit more information about some of the ways that we use different levels of prompting to give students a little independence, which is something that maybe we need to work on at home or maybe we need to work on at school. So this is just kind of an outline of what we use. So we'll start with expectant pause, and this is also known as wait time. So we're going to go with the question, what do you want for lunch? So if I ask someone, what do you want for lunch? That wait time is giving them enough time to respond. If your student's using a device, that wait time is going to be a little bit longer than if your student is communicating verbally. So giving at least, sometimes we tell our paraprofessionals and our teachers talk about at school, counting to 10 in your head. And that seems like a lot, but sometimes it can be a good amount of time for your student to process the question, generate their response, and then figure out how they're going to say it. So that wait time. Super, super important, that expectant pause. So next is an indirect nonverbal prompt. A lot of words, basically to mean your body language or your facial expression. So what that might look like, what do you want for lunch? And you might kind of give that lean, you might give this facial expression, you might do one of these, your eyebrows up, saying like, it's time to tell me you are the next person that needs to talk, or you are the next person that needs to communicate something. Give that facial language or that body language, leaning into your student, changing your face, giving those eyebrows, that expectant kind of like, all right, you're up, buddy, without actually saying anything. Next, we've got indirect verbal prompt. So if you're asking the question, what do you want for lunch? You've already given that wait time. You've already given that kind of expectant pause, that lean, that facial expression. You could say, what do you need to do? Or what do you need to say? If you're doing something, like if you're doing a task, the teachers have posted a lot of great things about task analyses or a task analysis about steps to complete. So if you're doing a recipe, having that student follow the step, an indirect verbal prompt would be, what's next? What do we do now? Without giving them the answer to that question. Loading here. So requesting a response is our next level. And what that looks like is, tell me, what do you want? So what do you want for lunch? Wait, do this, give your gestures. So that, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want for lunch. Or use your words if you have a device user. That's requesting a direct response from them. Next, we have the gestural cue. So if the question that we're going back to is, what do you want for lunch? This may be pointing to the fridge or pointing to the cabinet or pointing to the different options that you have out on your counter, or pointing to foods in your students' devices. That gestural cue is guiding them using gestures to an answer. And this is different than that expectant pause, because that expectant pause with that facial expression and your body language, you're just indicating that you want any response. This gestural cue is kind of guiding them to the direction of a correct, or what we deem as a correct response. A partial verbal prompt. So this looks like we ask our question, what do you want for lunch? You would say, I want a, and then you would kind of leave it open for your student to answer. So you could say, I want a, or I would like a, or if you're filling out, or if you're doing one of those, a cooking video, for example, and you're doing a task analysis, you're talking about what step is next. You could say, the next step is, and then your student can fill in that blank. That's called a partial verbal prompt, because you're giving them kind of a sentence starter, something to get started on, and it decreases the amount that your student has to communicate. So they only have to plug in that last piece. So that's our partial verbal prompt. Then we have a direct model. So for our students who are using devices, this would look like you would model it out. Oh, for lunch, I want, and then you could select, I want a sandwich, or I want pizza, whatever you might want for lunch. A direct model for a task analysis, or for a student who is communicating verbally, this could say, we're talking about what we need to do next. I think we need to get the, whatever the next step is. So you would model what that looks like. And then what we're hoping your student does would be to repeat it or to follow this step. But that's also not required, right? We're not testing our students when we're doing this prompting hierarchy. We're providing a model, and we're providing that support so that they can do it independently. This part's super important. Model on the student's device, or model the real life action, and then wait. It's absolutely important to give that wait time again to see if your student will participate on their own after that prompt. And then last but not least, we have physical assistance. And this is kind of controversial in thinking about what we're asking our students to do and what the goal is. So if the student's indicating that they do not want to participate, that they're not interested in communicating with you, then we do not use that physical assistance for using devices or for doing anything really. The physical assistance piece is kind of to be used with our students who are using devices if they are learning how to use their device, if they're having trouble navigating, and what we use is called hand under hand. And what that looks like is that if this is your student's hand, you're placing your hand underneath to guide them to the different places on their device. We don't use, the grab and here, you're going to touch these buttons, because that's not how students learn, and it's not appropriate for adults to be making students communicate, because you can't really make anyone communicate. So using that hand under hand to kind of guide them to some options is a way that we can be using physical assistance at the very bottom of the hierarchy. And no, it says use with caution, because it's super important to figure out if your student is not responding or they're not communicating because they don't want to, versus if they're not communicating because they don't know how to. If it's a matter of they don't know how, absolutely it's appropriate to help them out with that. But if it's a matter of they don't want to, then maybe think about, what are the demands? What am I asking my student to communicate? And is it necessary for them to communicate in the way that I want them to right now? So those are the hierarchy that we use as a tool for AAC prompting, and kind of how we've adapted it to talk about prompting for all students. So I have these in PDF form if you're interested in them. You can also check out this. Honestly, if you Google AAC prompting hierarchy, this is from Positive Action, a website that talks about AAC use. You can find this from a quick Google as a source to be able to remind yourself of those different prompts. At school, we talk a lot about how we jump really quickly to this requesting response. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. What do you need to ask me? And that can be kind of detrimental or not really the point of what we're doing. So that AAC prompting hierarchy might be helpful for you and your family during this time at home. As always, if you have any questions about AAC or communicating with your student for academics or anything like that, please feel free to contact me. And I would be happy to share any of these resources with you. So thanks for watching my little video on prompt hierarchy, and hope you guys have a great day.